Welcome to Timberborn and the settlement of the Steeltide. My name is Zedek, and we're playing on the Terraces map on hard mode, and at this point, we're late game, and I'm just building all sorts of crazy things. Last episode, I had the idea of starting to revitalize a lot of the colony, and I ended up by completely destroying our downtown district, and that is the goal for today. I want to rebuild our downtown main district into something nice and grand with all sorts of amenities for the beavers. So a quick overview of the map if you're new to this playthrough. We've got 3 districts. We've got our main district, which I completely destroyed. We've got our southern district, which is Junkertown, a land of the bots, and our northern district, which is just this giant structure that is actually a multi-tiered dam. The central district is the only district populated by regular beavers, and that's what we're working on here. But I do want to build something nice and grand. What I'm thinking here is I would like to make a giant tower. And I want to take advantage of the fact that amenities stack vertically so that I can have all the different towers and monuments, and that's going to apply to all the households in that area. And to that end, I actually do want to change the flow of water here. So this is the original Mesa top when this game started. So if you've ever played the Terraces map, this part should look relatively familiar. What I want to do though is I want to change the route of this water. I want to make a nice kind of channel down the middle as a foundation, get everything green, and I'm going to build the city on top of it. And you can see I've got this nice bridge here, and I think that would be a good place to start. So what I'm thinking is that there would be a nice channel 3 wide, so we can take care of the best kind of irrigation distance. And then we can build kind of the grand road right on top of it and have a city built on top of that. Now with this line right here, that's going to connect this river to our second dam here. I would like a second river to kind of connect over to this dam here. I think that would roughly be somewhere along these lines right here. So this is going to be the grand central kind of intersection of this entire colony with the tower that the beavers live on built on top of it. Now, while we've got all that TNT being carted in, since I know I have a lot of construction planned, and this is its own district, I want to start carting in building supplies to be nearby. I think that's going to help speed up a lot of our extra steps coming up. So we should probably have all the basics. We're going to need some dirt to probably fill in this old river. We're going to need logs, planks, and metal. And I might as well put in some extract as well as some TNT. So last episode, I split this entire map into multiple districts. And one of the downsides is that our main district in the center really hasn't had a strong supply of building and building material. That's because all our mega structures have been built on kind of the exterior for the dam and Junkertown. So coming back in here, all that infrastructure is not in a place that I can easily use it. And the whole reason I ended up adding these districts was mainly for performance, because performance was getting so slow without them. I think next playthrough, I might do a slightly smaller map just so I don't run into this. Unfortunately, I'm noticing this TNT is taking longer than I expected to put down. I have a feeling I know why. So if we look over here, I'm not getting any extract carted in, and that's needed for all this triple dynamite. Now, last episode, I did turn off a few bad water discharge points over on top of Junkertown. And that's because ultimately I do want to kind of change this aqueduct waterfall around, and I needed to drain all of these basins to do that. At the moment though, I didn't realize, or I forgot, that these bad water discharges down here, they actually run through this waterfall and they feed this basin here, which is where we have our bad water pumps. So we've been working for the last 2 seasons on our reserves, and our reserves are all gone, and that means our extract is gone. Now I am not ready to turn on those other sources again yet, but I do have a backup plan. You'll notice that at the bottom of this basin where I collect bad water, I actually do have a pipe here. There's this little channel right here, and that channel connects down to this pipe right here. And this is a bad water pipe that connects every bad water source on the map and carts it down here to our power plant. Now, unfortunately, my power plant is only running at, barely a third capacity because those discharges are offline. But at the risk of slowing it down even more, I think I can create a backlog in that pipe to push water back into the basin. So these sluice gates down here, these are the ones that are actually controlling flow going into this area. I think what I can do is I could just artificially slow them down so that they're just kind of toggling slightly between open and close. So with that adjusted, let's go take a peek at that pipe, see if water is coming back up. That's a good sign. It looks like it has. It's gotten up to the top here, and then we can just go ahead and open that. So with that, our bad water pump should be working again. Okay, it will take a little bit for this to run through the system, but we should start having extract flowing again. And I will remind myself to kind of fix this stuff up later. While we wait for our extract production to catch up, I do have something else that we can get started on though, and that's carting in some dirt. So once this new kind of waterway is built, we don't need all of this old river anymore. So what I could do is, well, I still need it operational for now, I can at least fill in some of the lower layers. Maybe to help with that, I'll bring in yet another pile of dirt. To get access to this, unfortunately, I'll probably have to add some bridges here and there. It's a little wasteful, but it'll help it get done a little bit faster. Like that, our TNT is down. And I can even see we're getting some extra extract coming in too. So I want to destroy this, but I don't want to blow up all my beavers. I've got to be very careful to remove the road that they could potentially walk on. For example, here, I think I can probably get them around the edge of this dam. And then maybe they could take the long way around. I just need to be really careful because I notice there's times where the beavers don't always obey roads. Like this guy right here, he just walks off road. I think you need a little bit of time for the pathing to stabilize. And as we connect those two, that's actually going to be a nice connection between all of our three dams here. You can see previously I had this little pipe here, but that really restricted flow in here because this little pipe only connected to that source. So eventually that means I can tear some of this out too. And as that starts to flow, we've got the good season coming back in 4 days, so we'll be able to top off a lot of this relatively soon. And the other thing I want to do is this is going to be a main road. What I'd like to do is have a road in the middle of the river so you're surrounded on both sides. You see this mark right here? It's not something I mentioned this episode, but my long-term plan is that this is going to be the site of a new bridge that's going to go all the way over to this entrance. So ultimately I should plan on this road maybe connecting all the way down here, as well as maybe lining up in the future somewhere over here. So I'll just mark that so I remember. One thing I'm going to pause here is I'm going to wait to build this section because I've got a few extra plans for it. So to give you an idea of what I'm planning, I'm thinking of building an integrated water tower city all in one. So at the very center here, what I was thinking is some sort of towers like this. So these would be like 4 support columns. Something like that, except a little bit more even, because apparently I can't make things perfectly square. The idea is that these are going to be the foundations for water. So these pillars will be filled with water, and on the outside, I would probably have row houses. So something like this. I want a lot of space there, but I'm thinking they would be kind of all the way around the perimeter. And together this would make kind of the foundation of the tower. So I would get these water pillars up to the height of these row houses, and then I would build a foundation on that and have the tower go taller and taller from there. And the idea is that I want these pillars, or at least one of these pillars, connected to a pipe, connecting all the way back up to our water tower on the other end of the map, so that the entire center of this building fills with water. And then I can have waterfalls cascading down all around the beavers. Maybe have swimming pools through there, all sorts of stuff like that. So that gives you an idea of where I'm going. The catch with all of this, though, is one of these has to be connected to a pipe somehow. And our pipe access points are over here. Of these 3 towers, I think I only need 1 tower to be connected with a pipe. It could take the water up high, and then it could fill everything else. So I'm thinking this tower right here. So now you can see what I was thinking with waiting to build here, because I'm thinking that this part of the channel could be the one that connects over here to actually carry that water. But that makes me think this part of the channel needs to be at least 1 deeper, and that's going to hold the pressurized pipe. Then that pressurized pipe is going to connect to this channel right here, and that's what's going to go up. So let's start with this construction. Now, as for how this pipe is going to connect, that's something I need to figure out probably in a dry season. I've got a wet season coming in 3 days. I don't want to mess things up quite yet, but I think I'm going to have to redo part of our dam structure here. especially if this pipe maybe curves around and connects somewhere over here, because I'd like it to connect to both of these water sources somehow. A little bit of time, and we've at least got the road done. And it looks like the wet season should be back here relatively soon. You know, I did realize that there's no way to actually get to some of this TNT over here. Unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to build some support to get to that stuff. With this planned, I did have a thought too. As I was mentioning earlier, I'm gonna have those row houses set up. And the row houses are gonna be the perimeter, and that's where everybody's gonna live. But I do want easy access to food. I was thinking these small warehouses with food supplies kind of sprinkled across everything, but it is a relatively small amount of food. I'm tempted to actually bury some food underground. Underneath all of this, I could just have an easy access to a stairwell. So I'm wondering if I was a little bit quick to build some of these, if I instead should add maybe like a few different places where you can get food. If I buried this here, maybe one under each corner with a different set of food. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna have to unfortunately undo a couple of these things that I already did. So I'm gonna plan on each of these corners having one hidden food tucked underneath the water tower. You should be able to see what I was going for now. So there should be just enough space here to tuck one of these underneath, add a staircase up, and we should be able to seal the top with impermeable floors so nothing gets into the food. And then you can see it will just continue sealing everything up like it was before. Once this is built up, it's going to be, you won't even know anything is there. And that way the beavers don't have to walk very far to get food. Do think they finished the rest of this dynamite here, so I can get the rest of this, the start of this pipe work done too. As for this part, the reason I dynamited it one layer lower is that this is going to be a pipe that is connected to everything else, and the river is going to be on top of that pipe. So this pipe is going to connect to a channel here, and it'll be sealed off, and that's going to get water going up into the tower. So I'll lay down kind of the foundation of that and seal it off. And of course, once those foundations are there, I can probably put more platforms down on top again. Cycle 70 begins, and we should have water coming back shortly. I'm impressed. We've gotten quite a lot of cycles out of this map. And even at that cycles, I've still got a lot of different spaces over here to populate. Now, I don't think I'm going to do a massively detailed playthrough through all of this territory, given how the game is performing. It's just going to get worse from here. But I will definitely green it. I'll probably make sure it's populated with trees and farms and other stuff before I call this map complete. But I probably won't build it up with really ornate structures like I'm doing here. And I can see as they finish this part, we just need to build the part of the tower that will connect to the pipe. While I'm doing this, I'm not running power into the city. That's a departure from the other buildings I've done. I really don't think I need power in my plans, so hopefully this doesn't come back to bite me later. But I'm not running power lines through any of this stuff. And now that the pipe underneath is done, I can replace that overhang. Well, that's shaping up. Next up, I've always been annoyed by this kind of lip of structure here. I'm going to dynamite all of that away and make it nice and flat. It'll probably also help with green getting into everywhere in this map. That's going to get into this pipe, but I've gone down into the bottom here and I've turned it off, so there shouldn't be any water flowing in there at the moment. And I'm going to slowly work my way around and dynamite all of this lip away. In fact, when this is complete, this may be a good opportunity to get access, or at least easier access to this side of the map. Historically, this side of the map has been a really long slog to get here. Beavers have to go all the way down here, down this road, down through the industrial district, then back over the bridge. So long term, as I'm building this, this may be a good opportunity to make another stairwell down here. Eventually this could potentially be another district too if I cut it off. Because it's big enough and there could be space out here for more trees and farms and whatnot. Water is flowing in and I am seeing this turn most of this plateau nice and green. The only exception is this little splotch here, which doesn't make me happy. Hopefully as this water gets up to the top, it should get this one green too. Because I think this kind of holding tank does go close enough. Yeah, it's just the height difference, so that should turn green very soon. We are ready to move on to the next phase of construction though. And that's going to be to put down the row homes around the perimeter. Once they're in place, we can get rid of some of these temporary roads and make something a little bit more permanent. I want to have a lot of space to make decorations and amenities and whatnot. What I was imagining is kind of a combination of things. So I was thinking along the inside, there should be trees. It should be kind of a nice change from everything being so industrial. From there, I then want a row of amenities. And then after that, we're going to have the homes. So you can see the homes should be lined up like this. And I want them all the way nice and square, going all the way out to the side here to line up with these. So lots of potential housing. And again, this is just the first floor. I'm not imagining too much housing on the second floor, but this is really the foundation. So I imagine this is where the majority of the beavers are going to live. Then we're going to have a nice road all the way around the perimeter. It's kind of almost like a castle now when you look at it, because all the entryways are in the inside of the city, and together they almost create an outer wall. And I put oaks down, which are going to take a while to grow. So can I just put a temporary forester in here to get these planted? And you can see also what I meant about potentially changing this dam. It kind of detracts from this tower that's forming. So ultimately, I might move this around. We're going to have to really figure this out. I'm not sure I like this lip going out as far as it is right now. And I have to say, things are definitely getting a little bit faster to work with now. I mean, things are still slow compared to the beginning of the game, but adding those districts last episode really did help with performance. Oh, and a bad tide. Well, that's unfortunate for my plans, because I would like to tear all of this out in a dry season, but if that's spewing out bad water, not so great. Some of our dam remodeling might be pushed off for another season. But at least we can continue building this up. We just won't be able to populate it with water because I won't be able to connect that pipe just yet. I need a nice long dry season, all that work. At the very least, we can go on to the next stage of building. For one, I do want easy access to water for each of the beavers here. So I'm going to make water stations on each of the corners. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and update some of the storage that we have down here to hold food. So, a bunch of easy access to food and water now. I can see our foresters seem to have finished building everything here, so I can decommission them again. Now it's time to start building up. And this part might need a little bit of trial and error. So what I had in mind is I wanted each of these towers to go up high enough that I could then connect over with the center buildings there. And I can make one giant, massive platform for everything. But I think I'm going to need to figure out a couple of things. So one, I need some way to actually access the second story. So I need to plan for a stairwell in here. But the idea I roughly had in mind was something like this. So if I make kind of a spiral pattern like that, I think I should be able to make something that reaches out over to the center of these buildings, like that. Will that work? No, I think I need one adjustment here. I think these over here, they need to be at least one lower if everything is going to line up just right. So if I lower things like that, I do have a problem with water leaking, but we'll get to that in a second. But that should let me build something like that. Okay, that is much better. I'll just have to figure out these corner pieces because not both of them can line up there. We'll figure that out in a second. But okay, so that would be the foundation of the tower. Now, I did mention earlier, I'm going to run into a problem with these overhangs because they will cause leaking. You can see right there. And there is a way around this. It is really annoying. But what I can do is build a foundation internally like this and put levees across. I'll have to do something similar for this next layer too. But let's get all of these ones addressed first. There we go. Got the first set kind of figured out. And you notice I left this one blank. This is one I need to figure out more. As I was mentioning earlier, I need a way for the beavers to get to the second story of this. And the way I'm going to do that is by keeping one of these not filled with water, but being a stairwell. So I need to figure out that stairwell now before I build any higher, because I need to build a doorway to get access to it. I'd like an exit somewhere over here, and it needs to be high, because I'm imagining that this floor needs to go one level higher still, just because I need more overhangs to go over this section or corner. So if we imagine that these were here, I need to figure out how to fit a stairwell there so the exit ends up there. And then we'll have to figure out then where that door lines up. Yeah, that should do the trick and should let me continue to go higher. The only problem is I need to make sure that there is an entrance into that actual stairwell. And I think that should be fine as long as I just go through here. Yeah, this was thankfully one of the few areas where I do not have kind of a load-bearing support on that wall. So I can probably just build a platform like that, and then I can build the wall right back the way it was. And again, this column is not having any water in it, so that's fine. And this is good too, because now that we have a stairwell, that's going to be the access point for all the building on this layer. So you're probably wondering what I have in mind for all this. Like, why am I building the second story? To give you a sense of what I'm going for is, I want this to look like a cross of, I don't know, the Tower of Babel or the Gardens of Babylon. I want water cascading through waterfalls all the way down through this to have pools of water on it. And so that's why I'm going through the trouble of having this water here, as well as getting all this second story going. I want it to have rivers of water in the actual structure. So if you imagine, I want 3 wide water that would run down the length of these 3 areas, right going over to where the roads are. And then what I could do is add some sluice gates right like that, just to let a trickle of water out when it's lower. And that's going to look like you're walking into the city through kind of a waterfall. And I think I could even do it in the center area too, so that there's water cascading down there. Now, to do that, all of this is ultimately going to have to be watertight. So that would mean that these rivers would have to go all the way back out to this area, kind of in a star-like pattern. So the next question you're probably asking is, how does water actually get into these pools? And that's going to be on the next story up. So this pipe is going to go up even higher and then let water cascade down. I think this will look a little bit easier to see once I finish the foundation, so you can see what's part of pools and what's part of the floors. So to that end, I think we need to finish kind of the floor parts for these corners. And for these, I think I can just kind of interleave platforms between the 2 sides to get something all the way out to the edge, giving me kind of a nice and square look. I don't think this is one of my bigger buildings, but this is definitely one of the trickier ones to get working. There's a lot going on with this build. And then once those are done, I think everything else is just going to get levees to be nice and flat. Fairly certain we've managed to get everything. I'm just going to put impermeable floors down on top of the water parts that we care about. And then we should be good to let the beavers start building this. Kind of very expensive tower. I would feel a lot better if I was able to actually get water in here to test it. But unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a good number of days to do that. So probably the highest priority thing they can be working on right now is getting those stairs in. They'll give access to all of these, and then once they get up here, I'll have to figure out all the overhangs and whatnot I'll need so they can clamber off to all the different sides. So I think we're about ready for a time lapse to build this, but doing a quick check over here, I noticed we've got a problem. We've got another set of leaking in our giant tower. So I'm curious where this leak is coming from. I knew when we built it that there would be multiple leaks like this, because it's very difficult to catch everything. But I'm going to use that technique I did last time. So I'm going to turn off transparency, and I'm going to look to see what direction the water is flowing from. And it's coming from our stairwell again. That's what happened last episode. So I can see it flowing down from the stairs. So we can figure out what layer of the stairs it's coming from. And it's coming from up here. I don't think this stairwell has a back. That's the same mistake we made last time. Yep, its back is just a regular platform. Quick patch jobs, we should be able to fix that. It's not as bad as it could be. And, you know, honestly, this is a good problem to have. Like, it shows that this dam is getting higher and higher than we've ever had it in the past. So if it's up here, we should be pretty close to starting to flood the second, or I guess the third layer of this dam pretty shortly. And the bad tide begins in a 25-day drought. Kind of a long one. Not happy about that, but it should give us time to finish, hopefully, this entire city. So with that said, let's start a time lapse and get this foundation built. and with half of this bad tide over, we've got our first foundation done. And hopefully this should be a little bit easier to see what I had planned. So if I zoom in here, you'll see I've got 4 chambers and 4 pools. Each of these ones with impermeable floors will eventually have an open pool that's going to have all these waterfalls coming through each of these points, which is then going to cascade down into our main river. As you can see, one of the reasons I want water in these pools too is I'm planning on putting more sustainable pools up here. And if the water tower keeps these populated, I should have a nice, easy swimming pool right close to everything else. However, we still have 11 days left in this bad tide. I think it's time to continue building up. Now, just as a reminder to myself, so I don't get lost with my building, I want kind of a guideline over here of how high I can build, because I'd hate to get my construction so high and then be cut off. So you can see we still have a decent amount of headroom, but I think I'm going to use basically all of that if I can. My next step is to continue these towers up. I'm going to take these high enough that I can cover the pools, but then I need to join them to be all part of one water tower. And I'm going to kind of repeat that same spiral pattern, or spiral technique I've been doing. Except this one's going to be a little bit more aggressive to get it all nice and flat that way. And then I think at the end, we just need a little cap over in the middle to seal everything off in the center. Some of these towers will potentially have spots that they can leak from. So just like the earlier floors, I'm going to have to go through here and then add kind of some blocks on the interior side to prevent that from happening. Seal all the important bits with impermeable floors. And we should have all our towers being joined now. I need crews up there, so we're going to continue this giant winding staircase, and hopefully we can find a way to get people up there. One thing I'm not really happy with, aesthetically, is seeing this overhang here. Because you can kind of look down, it doesn't look very symmetrical. But I have a plan for that. What I was thinking was having pillars kind of go up the edge. So as these get higher and higher, I was going to have them taper off a bit. And we'll see exactly how high I'm going to take them. But this nice side effect of that is that it is going to cover up that overhang from the side. You'll just see kind of that little nub there, but yeah, it's fine. We can just set those up on each of these corners. Yeah, it's shaping up. It's interesting. This is kind of the most geometric construction I've made in here. It's getting some nice patterns showing up. Now, while they work on that, I do want to lay some of the groundwork to getting another road this way. You notice we've got this, grand kind of road running through the building. And I was mentioning earlier, I'm tempted to have one of these roads provide easier access to this side of the map. So what I'd like to do is have this road have a staircase that goes into the mountain until it maybe gets level with this bridge and then has kind of a tri-bridge set up. And then what I'll probably do is have this dam grow over it. So you go kind of under the dam in a tunnel. First step though is we'll probably need some TNT to get down at the right level here. So I'll get that queued up in the background and then we'll come back to that later. Our main district crew, they've got some busy work. They've got to get all this set up before I continue building it taller. In the meantime, I'm going to go take a look back down at Junkertown, where we've got a whole nother set of builders, independent of our main district here. So I can set up some additional work here. So as I mentioned earlier, I have these domes offline, and that's because I wanted to redo the kind of the blueprint for this. And the side effect of that is we've got a lot less throughput on our power plant. In fact, when I look at it, we're probably even for the first time running a deficit. And for context, this power plant at full capacity runs closer to like 100,000, because that's going to be a big drag on the rest of our economy. Now, my problem I had with this design is it looks very tacked on. Compared to the rest of Junkertown, which is all nice and flush and sleek, this giant aqueduct is kind of a blemish compared to everything else. So I wanted to revisit this and see if I could come up with a design that was a lot more compact. And since everything is drained here, that's what I'm going to try to do. And I'm going to be very careful this time, because last time when I was messing around up here, I accidentally deleted the bad water discharges. I don't want a repeat of that accident. So I'm trying to carefully avoid deleting those. All right, we're almost back to square one here. A lot of ruins, a lot of debris, but we'll be able to recoup a lot of that. For this design, what I wanted is something just very sleek and on the top of the building. So I'm thinking something more like just a pipe. Just like a very long, narrow pipe right on top of the building. Doesn't even necessarily have to be this wide, but something like this. Whatever size or width I do, then I can just seal them off like this and put impermeable floors on top. In comparison, that looks, I think, a lot more in line with how the rest of this building should look. The only tricky part I need to figure out is the overhang bridge here, which I'm okay with this still being a bridge, and the bridge over here for how it spans. So I'm going to take a second and trial and error my way through this. With some tinkering, I've ended up with this, and I think that looks a lot cleaner than it was before. This did surprisingly take some tricky construction here. The hardest part was getting this bridge over here in a nice compact form without water leaking out. And also because I've got staircases underneath, because this is an entryway to get upstairs. So I ended up with these platforms underneath that have roads for the staircases, and then I built the bridge right on top of it. And you can see under here, everything is still sealed off with impermeable floors. So that should be nice and dry. So my next step is to carry this pipe all the way over here and dangle it off the edge and drop it into our power plant and to our pump intake. Problem is, this is about 5 cms of water. And if I have a pipe only, 4 wide, it only has 2 outtakes, which would limit us to, 4.4 cms. So I've got to kind of figure out something here to let this work. So I'm going to see what I can pull off with some overhangs. If I can get this overhang far enough, I might be able to solve kind of the waterfall problem by having multiple levees like this. If I have outtakes on the side. Now, unfortunately, I might have to make this a little bit deeper because that would just fall on the dirt, but that is a plausible answer. I don't like this overhang lip hanging out that way though. So I'm going to have to probably take this overhang lower over here. You know what? I think I just solved the problem. What I keep getting caught up on is having sluice gates kind of on the outskirts of whatever this overhang is. But what I'm remembering is that waterfalls don't always have to go through those. Waterfalls will form when there's a hole in a platform. So for example, let's say I had something like this, and I had impermeable floors with 2 holes here. Technically, that's going to form a waterfall because the water will come through the bottom. Even more important, that's going to have 6 edges, which is way more throughput than we actually need. So yeah, that is going to be the approach. I think that's going to work a lot nicer. Now, I probably just need some TNT here to make this level, and then I can probably just make another outcropping to get something down there. Giving me this plan. So this side over here, it lines up just right with this bad water kind of intake pond down here. Now this side, you'll notice it doesn't have any outtake. There's no sluice gates. But if we peek inside, you can see I did just what I showed in that experiment. You can see I've got a mixture of impermeable floors here and here. And that's going to give us 1, 2, 3 edges, which that should be more than enough. And those edges are going to fall down right on top of here. I'm actually quite proud of that. I didn't know if I'd be able to pull off getting that much throughput through that tiny area. But you can see with this, now these overhangs, again, they're nice and flat. This is like the mini version of what we had before. Okay, with building complete, I think we're ready to test this thing. So let's go ahead and give it a try. So open this one up and I'll be ready just in case I need to turn it off. Going up, 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 up. Hitting the bridge. Running across. And then as soon as it gets over, let's pause it. This will be a good sanity check now to make sure there's nothing leaking. Well, so far so good. Okay, let's keep that going. I'll let this run all the way down to the next one, and then we'll do another check. Oh, there we go. We got a leak right here. So pause. We got a few flooded buildings. This, of course, is going to fall all the way down to the bottom of the map. Now, there's only bots in this city, so the most annoying part is just the pollution and the loss of trees down in the basement. So let's see. Let's temporarily close that, and then we'll get crews here. I'm actually not sure why they didn't build those. They're configured to be built. They must have been just too far enough away from building queues. Yeah, there's no road there. very quick to get those built. And of course, all that water down there is just going to probably fall in with our water supply and get diluted. But it's nothing that we can't recover from. So you can kind of see we've got a lot of trees down here. So we lost just this kind of chunk. Let's try that again. Now that we've got that all patched up, we'll see if we get any farther. Okay, we got to this one successfully, and I don't see any flooding down below. So let's go ahead and open up the second chamber. No leaks on the big aqueduct. That looks like it's working pretty well. We've got multiple waterfalls coming through there, so that's looking good. The only downside with this technique I have is I have no control over stopping flow at any given point. It's always going to be going full tilt. So with those going down, the other thing I can do is reopen all of these. Remember I had those closed earlier on so I could kind of create pressure in the pipe to flood this? Well, now that it's going to be topped off by that, I don't need to worry about it anymore. And with that, we've got a little bit of overflow. It's just all that pent-up demand is hitting our power plant, and it's going to take a little bit for all this to equalize. But I do see our power quickly jumping back up. You know, we're back up to 60K and climbing rapidly. Yeah, that looks better. I'll come back later in a future episode and probably move these control towers. I'm thinking I might put them inside the atrium. They'll continue to make this look a lot cleaner than it was. But in the time it took them to build this, let's go back to our downtown and see how the beavers are doing on the next layer of the tower. Not too bad. I've got a few stranded beavers, unfortunately, so I should probably rescue these guys. But other than that, it's looking fine. We still have 5 days until the next drought, so we'll see how high we can get this tower before that ends. You can also tell that we have way more builders and material in Junkertown. It just takes a lot less time to build things there. While construction crews finish up the build queue here, let's go ahead and finish the dynamite plan over here, especially since it might take a couple rounds to get this all planned out just the way we want. So you can imagine what I had in mind was there'd be an overhang like that for a bridge, and that would connect in the middle. So from the looks of it, we've got quite a ways to dynamite down to. Okay, that's looking better. At least plausible like that it might actually reach. Actually, that reach is perfectly. It's a very long stretch, but that does the trick. I got really lucky just sizing that just right. So if that bridge connects over there, then I can just fill in some of this dirt again and make kind of a nice staircase up, I think. So it'd be something like that. This will be a much more convenient access point to all these resources down here. So happy about that. Okay, so here's the deal. I've got 2 different water sources that could fill up our main city coming in. I've got this one here and this pipe here connecting all the way up to our main dam. What I'm leaning towards doing is creating another kind of entryway to the river over here, like that. Down at the bottom, this would then run that pipe, and it's going to connect to a combination of this source behind a kind of a filtered sluice gate, as well as this pipe. Then as for the dam, I'm thinking I'm actually going to cut off part of this dam here, because it really doesn't need to be in this shape anymore. And I'm going to move the dam over here, and then kind of have a tunnel going through the dam that gets access to this bridge. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Now, I need like a really long drought to pull this off, because I need to eventually tear down all of this. So I'll get the TNT laid down for that next run, but in the meantime, given that they finished the rest of this construction, I'm just going to keep getting this built as much as I can, with the idea that hopefully after the next drought, we'll be good to go to start populating it. So now that each of the 4 chambers are joined, we're going to be able to make this one giant water tank, with the exception of our staircase, which is going to have to continue to wind upward. I'm thinking the next story would be somewhere there, and then we can have our final tower on top of that. So you can see this is why I have this pole here, so I can kind of gauge how high I can go. Let's see, I really have to test this, because on the very top of the building, I do want a monument to be placed there. And if I build this, you know, too ridiculously high, it won't let me build anything else on top. So let's try that. I'm going to just put down a few scaffoldings to get up to the height that I was thinking, and then we'll see what buildings it will let me put up here. Well, definitely not a tribute to ingenuity. That's a no-go. What about a district center, though? Still no go. Okay, so that kind of puts a damper at how high I can go. I would like kind of a statue of ingenuity on top of this, because that would be a nice bonus to all the homes down below. Let's see, what height can I get away with that it's not going to be angry with me? And unfortunately, it's not as high as I would have liked. So this is as high as I can make a district center, and this is as high as I can make a tribute to ingenuity. And that is roughly in line with that pole that I built. So I do like the idea of putting my town center kind of at the very peak, because it's got that flame coming from the top. So maybe it would be interesting to have this set up. So I maybe have 2 tributes to ingenuity on either side, and then this built up in the middle. Now, unfortunately, that means I can't make this as high as I would have liked. Probably going to have to lower this by at least another layer. I mean, this isn't a complete loss. There's still some interesting, texture that we can make with different shapes on the edge here. How about something like this? So you can see I've just put down some of the homes around the edges so I can get a feel for it. And I added some overhangs, just 1 deep to the edge to kind of put these off to the side. So it kind of looks like they're tapering in. You can't even really tell that there's an overhang from a distance. And that should allow me to kind of keep enough kind of dam space in here, because I need to have more water that I'm retaining. So I think from the inside then, I should be able to just, work around the presence of these towers. Just like that, and continue moving upward. So let's start from here and then figure out our stairwell. Because our stairwell probably needs to come out somewhere here, and then we'll have one final staircase to get up to the top. Which actually, that works out just perfectly. We got really lucky. Now, before I build any further, I'm going to make one minor change here. Because remember I was telling you I want this to look like a garden. I want to continue that. So I want waterfalls from this top layer going down too. So I can achieve that, I think, if I put, sluice gates in each of these corners. Okay, now we just need to make the final rise up for our district city center. And I think with the help of some overhangs, we should be able to pull this off without too much difficulty. So hopefully this is going to work. Hopefully we're not yet high enough. Okay, so there would be this district center. At the very least, I do need stairs up to the city center. So we can assume there's something like this. And the stairwell should be able to get access to that just fine. Okay, I think that's looking good. And then maybe we can just sprinkle around a few decorations here and there to kind of complete things. So it doesn't look, quite so industrial. With everything placed, we've got this monstrosity. I can barely keep it on screen. So all I've done is add a few gardens, some statues. So I'm curious how this will look once we've got water in it. It is definitely an imposing structure. My only complaint is I wish these statues were just not quite as tall. I wish I had a little bit more height to play with so I could get the district center a little bit higher than everything else. Now, there's a few other things that this needs that eventually we'll have to get around to doing. So for example, I wanted rooftop terraces on each of these corners. So that should give like another quick amenity to everybody. And then there's stuff down at the ground level we'll have to get to. And we're out of the bad tide. That was a fairly long one at 25 days. So I definitely want to get everything topped off, even though I am going to tear this apart in the near future. Because I'm really hoping that we get a regular drought coming up, we can finish up this tower, and then we can go ahead and plan what's going to happen with that dam. While everything gets topped off though, let's switch to one final time lapse and see them build the rest of this tower. There is the first round of this building. Now, you'll notice there's a couple things I did change. I don't have the giant monuments down yet, and I'm still debating whether or not I am going to add them. I feel like they kind of make this giant building a little bit unbalanced when they're present. Also, one of those towers has like a massive area of effect. You can see, if I could just find one place to put one of these, it would be enough to cover basically the entire town. So while I could afford to, I'm not sure if I'm actually going to do it. But at this point, I've been recording for close to 10 hours. I think I'm going to pause here. Now, this building is built, but not yet fully operational, because we still need to figure out our dam. And observant viewers are also probably noticing that this dam is running out of water. And why is that happening when we've got this water tower up here? Well, for one reason, I haven't actually hooked up this water tower. So you can see this water tower is filled up to the brim. In fact, over this last season, we've made good progress in filling this thing up. However, all the way down at the bottom here, I don't actually have the water tower connected fully because I have its connection set to one way here. So I can delete this, and I'm going to have to, and that will let water start flowing the other direction. But it might have some consequences when I do. But that is going to be for next episode. Let me know how you think the new downtown district is shaping out in the comments below, and I hope to catch you next time.